I would like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to all, and thank you for coming out to tonight's meeting of the Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission. We're going to take roll call. Commissioner Nancy Golden.
Here.
Commissioner Sean Hutchinson.
Here.
Commissioner Bill Lewis.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Outlowski.
Present.
Commissioner Jeff Nelson.
Present.
Commissioner Mitchell Bolnick.
Present.
And I'm Commissioner Lee Strickman. This commission is composed of Peoria citizens who've been appointed by the City Council to serve on the commission as a civic responsibility without compensation. Our duty is to study and review the planning and zoning issues within the City of Peoria and then forward our recommendations to the City Council. All hearings are conducted with the rules for procedure and Robert's Rules of Order. Each case will be called in order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. In the interest of maintaining a fair and efficient hearing, the Commission adheres to the following steps. Chairperson calls the case, staff gives a brief report and recommendation, applicant gives a presentation, opposition and support gives testimony, generally limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Applicant may give a rebuttal, commission discussion and decision. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant on my left. Please be as brief as possible and do not repeat statements already made by others. Anyone wishing to protest the decision of commission public hearing item must request a second public hearing before the City Council. The request must be submitted in writing to the Planning and Community Development Department within 10 days after the Commission's hearing. All Commission recommendations on public hearing items move forward to a regular City Council meeting. The City Council will then act on the recommendation of the Commission. They may concur with the decision, modify it, or overturn it. We welcome citizens' comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation. This is the final call to submit speaker request forms. If anyone wishes to speak, please fill out a speaker request form and provide it to staff seated to my left on the dais. The consent agenda is for items that are routine in nature and consist of 4 items tonight. 1C is the discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on April 21st, 2016. 2C is CU 16-0004, and that's the American Legion Post 62, discussion and possible action to consider a request for a conditional use permit to allow outdoor dining at 9847 West Desert Cove, which is the patio at American Legion. 3C is CU 16-0005, and that's Faux Mountainside Crossing, and that is the discussion and possible action to consider a request for a conditional use permit to allow a wireless communication facility at a maximum height of 50 feet with an associated 450 square foot equipment enclosure. That facility will be located on the southeast corner of Lake Pleasant Parkway and Happy Valley Road. 4C, CU 16-0002, and that is Headquarters Restaurant. Discussion and possible action to consider a request for a conditional use permit to allow an approximately 1,360 square foot outdoor dining patio at the Headquarters Restaurant, which is located at 16041 Arrowhead Fountains Center. Do any commissioners have any questions and/or comments? Seeing no questions, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you. I'd move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Commissioner Hutchinson?
Second.
Thank you. Oh, I thought you said something. Okay. Please vote. And that passes. We now move on to new business. The first agenda item under new business is 5R GPA 15-0008, and that is Ironwood Commercial. And staff will also be reporting at the same time on 6R Z15-0014. Staff, please present your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Cody Gleason. I'm a planner with the City of Peoria Planning and Community Development Department. As mentioned, I will be presenting one presentation to you tonight for two cases, one of which is a general plan amendment, the other of which is a rezoning request. The subject site is located at the southeast corner of 102nd Avenue and 102nd Avenue and Pinnacle Peak Road. The general plan amendment request is to modify the land use designation from the current designation of estate density residential to office land use. The rezoning request is to modify the current zoning designation of general agricultural to planned area development. And the purpose of that planned area development would be for select uses from the O1 zoning district, as well as mini storage use. As you can see here, for a little bit of context for the general plan amendment portion, surrounding this parcel is a estate density residential land use category, and the proposal would be to change it to office. As you can see, across Lake Pleasant Parkway is another office designation just south of Lake Pleasant and Pinnacle Peak Road. As far as zoning, for the rezoning request, you have a request for PAD zoning from the current holding district of ag or general agricultural. The justification behind this proposal is a portion of which comes from page 2-23 of the City of Peoria General Plan, which identifies the intersection of Pinnacle Peak Road and Lake Pleasant Parkway as a potential office node. As you can see by the previous slide here, I apologize, there is an office designation just south of that intersection. Also, you have the context of the facilities surrounding this location. So to the south, you have the Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Facility. You then have the retention area that's improved by the city and owned by the city to the west of this parcel. To the north, you have the drainage channel, which again is owned and improved by the city to the north. To the east of this site, you have an existing Circle K gas station. The proposal would be to, as I said, provide for limited uses from the O1 zoning district. So it would provide, in context, somewhat of a transition from the C2 that you see at the four corners of Lake Pleasant Parkway and Pinnacle Peak Road down to what would be consistent with office uses, and then to the ag that you see to the west and the Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Facility. Even though it's zoned residential, the built environment and the future of that parcel to the south will be the expansion of the police facility and the community recreation building. What you have here is just a sampling of some of the uses from not only the O1 zoning district, but the proposed PAD. The purpose of this is to give you a little bit of context as to how the proposed uses in the PAD relate to what would otherwise be in the O1 zoning district. As you can see, O1 would allow for professional medical offices, but it also allows for slightly more intense uses such as restaurants, health and exercise centers, so something along the lines of a gym, and school and daycare preschool uses. The PAD proposes, again, medical and professional office uses, as well as mini storage. The reason for including the mini storage, it was viewed as a somewhat less intense use as compared to, as you can see there, restaurants, which you would have a high volume of traffic and activity on the site, whereas with mini storage, it's anticipated to have relatively low activity and traffic volumes. Continues on into art gallery and school. The purpose for including school at that location is not necessarily to have a school there, but merely to be consistent with our non-residential zoning districts, which do typically permit schools. The development standards for the proposed PAD would abide by the O1 development standards. As you can see here, the O1 development standards are listed. So you would have a maximum height of 30 feet that could accommodate 2 stories. It has not yet been determined what the finished height of the facility would be. It is stipulated that upon site plan review, the facility would be reviewed for height in context with the area, especially because we have the Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Facility to the south. We want to ensure that it provides safe visual access and avoidance of sight lines into the police station that you would have to the south there. The front, rear, and side setbacks are, as I mentioned, the typical setbacks that you would have for the O1 zoning district. What you see here is the parcel in question. Some of the modifications to the landscape standards that are proposed within the PAD include an increase of the what would be the northern buffer or landscape buffer from 20 feet to 23 feet, which would represent a 15% increase. To the south, as I mentioned, where you have the Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Facility expansion, would be an increase from 20 feet to 25 feet. So within those areas, you would have not only the increased width of the landscape buffer, but you would also have more intense planting requirements for those landscape buffers. This is just a representation of what has already been dedicated for right-of-way. The developer has worked with the city in conjunction with a current CIP project that's occurring directly adjacent to this property, so the developer has already dedicated the right-of-way prior to the case proceeding. This here is a representation of the landscape buffer that would be outside of that dedicated right-of-way. I didn't represent the landscape track that would be present on the west side of the property, simply because that would depend on the use that occurs there. So the mini storage use would have a 10-foot landscape track on the west side, whereas any other non-residential use at that location would have a 15-foot landscape track. The purpose of that is with a mini storage facility, typically you're entirely enclosed within the walls of the facility as is required by our code that it be screened. So you don't really have that visual access into the site, so the need for that increased track is somewhat diminished. As far as public participation, the city did follow our typical standards for rezoning cases. A neighborhood meeting was held on February 11th, 2016 at the Sunrise Mountain Library. There was one individual in attendance. The applicant provided the proposal to him, and he didn't identify any further questions or concerns regarding the proposal. In addition, staff did not receive any further public comment via phone call, email, or attendance at City Hall. The key findings for these two cases are that the office land use and the PAD zoning district will allow for the development of appropriate context, scale, and intensity with the adjacent uses, keeping in mind that though it's not directly adjacent to residential, it will accommodate increased landscape buffers so that anyone in the nearby area would not be impeded by the development directly on the boundary line. Additionally, within the PAD, the applicant provided for enhanced design standards to incorporate residential elements and, again, elevate the design so that you don't have a typical, what you would call a typical mini storage facility. If that's the use that occurs with plain walls, they did elevate those standards. The amendment will reflect the development needs of the area while accounting for the existing built environment. The amendment is in conformance with the goals, objectives, and policies of the City of Peoria General Plan, and the proposed potential office or mini storage facility would complement the existing development in the area, and as I mentioned, would elevate the design standards and increase landscape buffers, will enhance the aesthetics of the area. As a result, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission provide a favorable recommendation to City Council regarding item 5R GPA 15-0008 and item 6R case Z 15-0014. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions of staff? Okay. Commissioner Bolnick?
So is it our understanding that it might be a mini storage, but it might be something else?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Bolnick, that is correct. The PAD provides for a very limited range of uses, some of which were shown on the slide, but the intention is to kind of limit those uses to items that are viewed as coinciding with an office use or somewhat low intensity, low traffic uses at the location, of which mini storage was viewed as an appropriate fit within that.
So if I may want to follow up. So what I'm getting at, do we have any indication of what might go there? I'd love to see a mini storage go there, but do we have any indication that it might not be a mini storage or it might be something? What's going to trigger that from the, do we know?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Bolnick, the applicant did provide very preliminary development plans within the PAD if it were to come in as a mini storage or if it were to come in as a professional office use, but there's no direct indication as to what it would be. The applicant is in attendance and may be able to provide some further guidance on that.
Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any other questions? Okay. I have opened the public hearing for 5R GPA 15-0008. Is the applicant present? Wish to speak, please come state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Shelby Duplessis with Empire Communities. My address is 6617 North Scottsdale Road in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you, Cody, as always, for a great presentation. I think he's answered all your questions and has provided all the information. We would love to see mini storage, and we may possibly even build and operate a mini storage ourselves. We've worked with a couple other companies that we've talked to in their interest for the site, and there's a lot of interest both for the mini storage use and for office use. So right now, we're leaning towards mini storage, but we're waiting to find out who that end user might be, whether it be us or someone else, to determine what will be built there exactly.
And you are in agreement with staff recommendations?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any questions of the Commissioner Bolnick?
I'm sorry, this one's near and dear to me. So what's your experience with commercial? I mean, I looked at your website and it's residential, and so I'm curious.
So actually, our company is made up of 80 different company umbrellas, many of which are commercial, and some are residential. I basically work in the residential department, but I'm starting to branch into some of the commercial. We've done Australia Town Center. We've done a project in Goodyear and in Avondale. Both are commercial centers. And we're also working on a retail space adjacent to the Circles building, downtown Phoenix, the historic preservation of that building, along with a 19-story condo complex above that with a 7-story parking garage. So we definitely have a lot of history and experience in commercial as well.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commission? No? Okay. I am now
Thank you.
closing the public hearing. Did I do that? Okay, I'm too strong for my own good, huh? Do I have a motion? Okay, do I have a motion? Commissioner Nelson?
I would be happy to make a motion.
Thank you.
So do we have to treat these separately?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd move that we forward a favorable recommendation to the city council for case number case number GPA 1500008, subject to the conditions and stipulations outlined in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Please vote. And that passes. Okay, I'll go lighter this time. I am now opening the public hearing for 6R G15-0014, Ironwood Commercial. Do any commissioners have any additional questions? Okay. I am now closing the public hearing. Any comments from commissioners? Do I have a motion? Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that we I would move that we forward a favorable recommendation to the City Council for case number Z150014, subject to the conditions and stipulations outlined in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Please vote. And that passes. Are there any comments from public on non-agenda items? Seeing there are no comments on non-agenda items, we're going to move on to reports from staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Commission, just a quick note that the next two meetings, May 19th and June 2nd, will be canceled due to lack of cases, but we are scheduling a June 16th hearing at this location at 6:30 in the evening.
Thank you. Any reports from the Planning and Zoning Commission? Seeing no further business, I call this meeting adjourned.